November 11th, 2023. Before we go into our normal Pledge of Allegiance today, I'd like to say a couple words. It's been 22 years since 9/11. I'm sure we all remember where we were that day. I was in third grade, believe it or not, still remembering it, but it is something that hit close to home for everybody. It's one of the reasons I ended up enlisting later in my life. Having military families, I remember the general reaction of everybody wondering who was deploying where. Here in Taneytown, it also hit especially close to home, and I want to spotlight Joanne Hildebridle, one of our own here in Taneytown, raised in Taneytown, an FSK graduate. She was one of the lives lost that day. And as we go into the Pledge of Allegiance here today, I want to take a moment of silence to remember all the first responders who lost their lives that day, everybody who lost their lives in the attack that day, and all the troops who lost their lives in the global war on terrorism leading after that. I also wanted to say a thank you to Councilperson Judy Fuller for placing flowers at Joanne's memorial today. Thank you. Small acts like that are what keep the memory alive for those that we have lost. If you could, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. After that, please stay standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We will now be proceeding to the roll call. Please let it be shown that Councilmember Cheney is currently absent as of right now, and she's having some internet connections as far as attending virtually. Next, I'll be heading down to the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from August 9th, 2023 and the August 14th, 2023 regular meetings. I'm looking for a motion of approval on those minutes.
So moved.
I'm looking for a second.
I'll second that.
Any debate or discussion regarding those minutes? Hearing none, I'm heading towards a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Now we are at the council member statement regarding conflicts of interest on agenda items. Do any council members have any conflicts that they'd like to bring up before we head into it today? Hearing none, we are proceeding forward to resolution, ordinances, and agreements. First up, we have first up for adoption, we have ordinance 06-2023, clarification of dwelling types. I am looking for a motion to approve that ordinance.
I move that we approve the ordinance clarifying the dwelling types.
I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Debate, discussion,
No, I think that was all.
Here-
Hammered out.
hearing
Last couple of
none.
months.
I'm looking for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up, we have the adoption of ordinance 07-2023, fiscal year 2022-2023, budget amendment number 3. I am looking for a motion on that.
I move we accept the budget amendment.
I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Debate, discussion. Hearing none, I am looking for all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up, we have adoption of ordinance 08-2023, fiscal year 2023-2024, budget amendment number 1. I'm looking for a motion on that.
I'll move, we adopt it.
I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Any further discussion, comments, concerns? Hearing none, going forward with the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up, for adoption, we have resolution 2023-14, water allocation for September. I'm looking for a motion on that.
Move to approve the water allocation for September.
I'm looking for a second.
I second the water allocation motion.
I'm looking for further discussion, debate. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. City manager report. Any additional?
Couple quick follow-ups. Actually, this is more departmental reports, but We talked about a number of police policies on Wednesday night at the workshop, and do want to make sure that we take time, maybe later in the agenda, to discuss those. And just a quick follow-up, there's a question Wednesday night about the expense for Shannon Bond signs, and that was all new signs for the Roberts Mill Road and Broad Street project. So that's why we spent so much on signs at one time.
They weren't part of the contract?
No, we determined that we could do it less expensively than having the contractor do it with their overhead and stuff.
Any further comments, questions for the city manager regarding that? And on on this police department stuff, we'll do that towards the end of the new business. Questions, comments, concerns for the city manager on city manager report and departmental report? Hearing none, heading forward to the legal report. Jay, are you there?
Yep, I'm here, I guess. So there we go. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to follow up on the email. I was going to write you one today about the police departmental policy reports, but I felt it would just be easier to tell you tonight. So there are, I think I counted up like 9 policies that the city manager outlined for you, and he and I discussed these. You got your report last week, and these are policies that have to be done immediately. There really isn't any reason not to do them. They're required, and they need to be updated as soon as possible and put in the books. The reason we bring all these policies to you, and I wanted to be clear about that, isn't because of any action you've taken in the past where it says that remember we said the acting chief isn't to make new policy and isn't to change things. The code actually requires that the Taneytown Police Department's policy and procedure manual be approved by the city council. So normally all of them would be placed in a policies and procedure manual, and you would then get the copy and then you would adopt it, and any changes you would adopt going forward. We can't really wait until we can put that manual together. There are several policies that we could wait for, and I'm going to make up examples. They're not ones we're dealing with, but if like the grooming standards, the uniform standards, those aren't critical. But these ones that the city manager has sent to you are absolutely critical. And so later in the meeting, when you talk about these, and you can talk about the specifics if you want, and I can help you with them. But the bottom line is these policies have to be there. We face problems and liabilities if we don't. So when we get to that discussion, Mayor, you can call on me if there's any questions. There are some policies that would be more helpful, and I know there's one of those that is in the city manager's email to you regarding the leave policy that has been going on for quite some time. And I think the issue with that, while that is not critical from a liability standpoint, it becomes critical from an operations standpoint. It's just very difficult to understand why we haven't dealt with this, that it's just something straightforward and should be dealt with. And I think the city manager can talk about that later, but the thought that I had was if there's no fiscal impact to the changes, then it really wouldn't be something that the council is really going to have to dwell on too much. But that was what my memo was going to say, but I said it quicker than I could write it out. So unless there are any other questions, I don't have anything further, Mayor.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns for legal before we head
this
forward?
time.
Not this time. Sounds good. Heading over to old business. Nothing on old business. Heading to news business. Monthly financial report. I am looking for a motion on that if there.
I just ask a question. I meant to ask this the other night, and maybe it's just me. But what reminded me of it is the street sweeper bill that we paid. I don't think I've seen a street sweeper for 6 months. How do we monitor that? How do we know that they come? I mean, I don't know whether Chris has seen them on York Street or not, but I sure have.
Every once in a while, I hear him early in the morning.
Well, I've never had any evidence of him by my house.
Now, they have missed some of their appointed Mondays, either for mechanical failures or weather-related things, in which case they typically come later in that week. I can't think of a month that we didn't get swept off in recent memory, but they do show up. So,
Yeah, but
And-
if they're coming on a different
And-
day,
and that-
cars
right.
aren't moved, and
right,
it's kind
and
of
that
hard to get
that
a
certainly
complete
does diminish the
Are we
quality of the
still-
job they can do.
paying full rate
Yes.
for that.
Yes.
Begs the question, why are we paying full
And,
rate for that?
and when we re-up for that contract, or when we put that out to bid again, we can certainly be more specific on that, because we certainly don't get the same effect when there are more cars parked than we do. It's hard enough to get the cars off the street on that third Monday,
Right.
let alone, some Tuesday or different Monday.
Any further comments, questions, concerns on that? I'm looking for a motion on it.
Motion to approve.
I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Discussion, debate. Hearing none, moving forward. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Accounts payables. I'm looking for a motion on that.
Motion to approve,
Looking
pay
for,
the bills.
looking for a second.
Second, pay the bills.
Any further debate, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Proposed county nuisance ordinance. Jim, did you want to go over? I think you're looking for consensus on a direction for this, right?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this Wednesday night, and I believe it was on the agenda at the council's request after one of the county commissioners emailed the agenda and the option of having the county do some enforcement for us. So just before we spend more time on it, just want to see if there's interest in moving forward with something with this, or if it was in your packets. So if it's just not for us, just let us know and we won't spend any more time and effort on it. If you'd like to explore it a little farther, we can have the city attorney review it and get his thoughts on it. Or we can go a different route and, pursue our own nuisance ordinance at some point in the future. We've talked about this off and on for a number of years. So really, this is just, we have the option of adopting a county ordinance this time around.
Well, they have not yet adopted this. They're still in draft
Right.
status on this ordinance.
Correct.
So
Yes.
I think we've had our reading through it. We've had the opportunity to review it. I should think we shouldn't act on it until we actually see the final version that comes from the county.
Right.
I agree
But
on that one.
if there's interest, we'll ask the city attorney to vet it and give us his comments as well, which we haven't done yet.
I think we should get it vetted just to see if it is of interest, right? We want to,
Yeah, we should definitely look at it. There is not a reason not to look at it.
Okay. We'll make that happen.
how does the rest of council here feel? Judy?
You good?
The same,
You good?
yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's
Okay.
get legal to review it once they have actually adopted it and, get back to it when we see it.
Will do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like I said, it wouldn't hurt to read through it, review it, be aware of, and so, and also that we're aware of any changes that the county makes
do
before
have
they
to
go to final. And then see if we need to tweak it any for hours, and if we do too much tweaking, or not to, you know what I mean? We'll know from the final.
Yeah. So next up, we have ratifications. Jim, you want a motion for these, right?
Yes, please.
Sounds good. So first up, we have the ratification of wastewater treatment plant floodplain easement. I'm looking for a motion on that.
Motion.
Motion to approve. Sounds good. I'm looking for a second on that.
I'll second the motion to approve that easement.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up, we have ratification of Bollinger Park floodplain easement. I'm looking for a motion on that.
Motion to approve.
Looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Discussion, debate, none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Ratification of Bollinger Park Forest Conservation Easement. I'm looking for a motion on that.
Make a motion to approve.
I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Discussion, debate, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Ratification of Bollinger Park Forest Conservation Agreement. I'm looking for a motion on that.
Motion to approve.
Looking for a second.
Second?
Discussion, debate, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Ratification of Duffy Box and Recycling Surety Reduction Ratification. I'm looking for a motion on that.
What are we reducing it to, Jim?
I just 4,298.80.
That like 2% or something? Is that?
It's, it just represents the percentage of remaining work that's called out in their public works agreement.
Okay.
So, and I apologize, the memo that came out Friday was not in the original packet, so sorry, that was a little late.
Gotcha. Oh, that's why I added on her. Thank you, Clara. I see you sent it. Doesn't mean I read it, but I see you sent it.
Looking for a motion on that?
Motion to approve.
Looking for
Make
a
a motion, or second, did we get a motion?
Yeah.
motion by Councilperson
Judy.
Fuller, second by Councilperson McCarron. All discussion debate? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up, we have approval of special event permit application, FSK FFA Alumni Car Show. I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Discussion debate? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up, we have acceptance of Meads Crossing drainage and utility easement. I'm looking for a motion on that.
Move to approve the drainage and utility easement.
I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Further discussion or debate?
Make a second, but I'd like to just, I'm not clear that we've got all our bases covered there. We've had problems with inflow and so forth like that. Is
This is,
gonna alleviate the developer from addressing those issues? Is that gonna end up in the homeowners association's lap or our lap?
no, this does not accept any of the infrastructure. So this is just accepting the deeds of easement so that the open space parcels can be transferred to the homeowners association, but it doesn't have anything to do with the infrastructure itself.
Well, I mean, that may be the cause of some of our inflow is what I'm thinking.
Yes, yes, we definitely have concerns there. And the developer's aware that we are not going to accept the sewer system until the I&I issue is addressed.
Yeah, this is just for, this is just a real estate matter. It has nothing, it's just a real estate matter, Jim, so that we can get these easements from the developer, who it'd be a lot easier than having to go through the homeowners association to get them later on.
You still got to fix the problem of buying.
It's not to fix the problem. It's not an acceptance of anything.
Well, that's what I wanted assurance, that they
Yes.
still have to fix the problem.
Yep. This does not relieve them of having to address the I&I.
Just to check, I have a motion by Councilperson Tillman with a second by Councilmember Foster.
My second, for discussion.
Okay. Councilperson McCarron has seconded it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. So one thing I wanted to ask about was at the workshop last week, it's not on the agenda for this Monday, but there was discussion over charter amendment changes. I spoke with a couple different council persons and individually, and I think a couple people are questioning why we're going through the review to begin with. If we are, in my opinion, if we are going to do the review, it should be through a citizen committee, but I don't think now is the proper time for the review of the charter amendments or the charter powers as was described on Wednesday.
When's a good time? I'm asking because,
We've been
It's-
talking about this for 5 years.
yeah, and it's come up many times that people are
Agreed.
allowed to do things because it's not in the charter.
That's
or
the, that's the
it's-
code,
you
that's the
can't
code
say-
though.
Sorry?
That's the code. Are you talking
That's
about,
not what was said. What was said was, well, it's not in your charter, so I can do whatever I want. So we're gonna look at the charter and we're gonna make sure that it is what we want it to be before we go in and see that everything is gonna match up to the code. It's just it's a stair step. It's a discussion, and it's hopefully supposed to be something that happens fairly quickly so that we can move on and then do the code and make sure that everything meshes together like it's supposed to.
I don't believe
think that there's any
charter,
reason to keep pushing it off, because like Councilwoman Foster said, we've been talking about this for years.
I do
that
agree
there's
that
been
it
issues,
it needs
so
review. If we're gonna
There's no
review it,
reason to be pushing it off anymore.
it should go through a committee for review. The
Committee will just
charter,
take too much time. We're talking
It
about
should-
trying to
the
line
char-
up
the
people
charter
with
amendment should take
schedules.
time.
I'm sorry, I'm still talking. It's everything. Everything needs to be taken care of. So we're gonna just start with this step. We'll start with the charter. C comes before, or I said CH comes before CO. We're just doing it all in order. It's nothing, it's just to make sure that everything is what it's supposed to be. I don't think we need to keep hearing, well, it's your fault because the charter didn't say this, or it's your fault because the code didn't say that. We're just gonna start from A and work our way down.
but I'm confused as to why you're doing the charter. The charter is the vested power of the people to us, the
And apparently,
representatives.
there's some issues in it because it's been brought up in the past.
And if there is,
So
we
now
shouldn't
we're
make
gonna figure it
hastily,
out.
we shouldn't make hastily changes. It should go to a committee of
Well, except for it's
citizens.
not we, it's the council. We're the legislative part of
I
this.
didn't want to tell you this, but in
And so-
charter, I'm actually a member of council.
Oh, see, look, there it is. So there's an
You
issue
don't,
because that's not.
how's that an issue? That's how our charter is built. That's how the powers and
that's what
structure
we
of the
need to
charter are
look
built.
at. Because that is not
We
how
need to kick it
things
back to
work.
the citizens then, because that is
Well,
their
and the
power to
citizens
us
will
as
have time to
representatives.
come in and make comments.
Give them a committee for it.
We're gonna what? We're gonna have 7,000 people on a committee?
I'll make the committee. I can still
I'm
make it a
sure that
committee
you
for
could
it.
make a committee, and you're more than welcome to do that. But what it comes down to is the council makes the decision and then votes on it. So we can either keep wasting time, or we can actually get something accomplished.
What are you aiming to get accomplished? What specific,
Clean
what
up
specific
the
complaint of the charter?
because
But that's not where the
apparently
ordinances are.
there's issues with trying to interpret the charter. So it needs to be made clearer so that there are no questions.
But why would we have the council persons that get their power from the charter be the ones who are looking at it to adjust the powers?
Why would we
The citizens
have
should look at it and make the
the-
recommendations for powers.
Why would we have the city
I
government
could
give
give
that
an answer to
information
that
to the
question,
people
Mayor.
to begin with? I don't.
I mean,
that
it's
doesn't
very
make any
common.
sense.
Look around at other municipalities. Other municipalities do committees for their charter amendments. And
Other
there's a reason for
municipalities
that.
also have gotten rid of their mayor completely.
Like
So
mayor,
we, we're not
I'm sorry,
trying to do
I'm sorry you're
that.
not mayor. I'm sorry your guy didn't win mayor. But it is not
I don't
appropriate
wanna
for
be
you
the
4
mayor
months
because
after the
the mayor
election
doesn't
to be
make the
trying to strip
legislative
powers from the
decisions.
mayor. I mean,
I
that's,
think somebody's a little paranoid.
it's
And
not
I wonder
paranoia.
why that is.
It's something you've talked about time and time again and
Have
again.
I?
Yes, you have.
Really? I'd love to know when that was.
May I say a few words?
Absolutely, Jim, please.
As a newbie, not being aware that we've been looking at redoing this charter, or revising the charter, or correcting the charter, and as an old timer that has gone through this before, it's not a pleasant situation. And in all due respect, Mayor, your position of having a citizens group form this charter is completely contrary to what we're trying to do. We as a governing body, the mayor and city council, are charged with governing the city. We have the expertise, we have the qualifications and the experience, or should, to look at the issues that are contained in the charter and see how they best balance one another out. I don't know that we can assume that reviewing the charter is going to change the form of government. But Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, any changes that are made in the charter have to go before the citizens for approval. The idea of looking at the charter periodically is probably a good one. But to have how am I going to say this that doesn't sound bad? But just to open it up to a general discussion by all the citizens in town is not going to accomplish anything. It would be the equivalent of having a town hall meeting here every month and just listening to what everybody have to say and have the majority rule. That's not what we do. We are elected and trained and extensively trained and how to govern a municipality, and this is part of that. The document, Mayor, that was passed on to me and that I read, I mean, it's, Karl Marx could have wrote it. I mean, I mean, it's very, it just doesn't, it would be chaos if we followed that pattern. That's what I'm trying to say.
So you think?
If we need to review the charter, and we probably do, then it needs to be us that does that. Once our recommendations come forward, and we need to change this or add this or take this away or modify this, then it comes before the citizens to ratify. Just like a constitutional amendment has to come before the states to ratify. And I don't think there's any harm in that. I think we need to do that. It's an arduous task. It's not something that's going to happen in 6 months. And with our track record, it might take years. But
May I ask the
the
attorney, quick, you know, I'm not as versed in the charter as I should be, obviously. And part of sitting in on a review, of being part of a panel to review the charter, for me would be a learning experience. I need to really understand what the charter says and how this government is supposed to function. I'm not in favor of making any wholesale changes. My question to you, Mr. Attorney, is if there are any recommended changes to the charter, do they have to go to the citizens, or what do we have to do with that?
The procedure to amend the charter is done by the council. So you pass a resolution. It's the charter resolution, which is handled just a little differently than a normal resolution, but it's handled by the council. There's a public hearing, which is a little different than your resolutions. It'd be more like your ordinance. And then you get to hear the public's input. But at the end of the day, the council makes the decision of what it's going to be. And then for charter amendments, what makes them different, what gives the power back to the people is if they don't like what the charter amendment that is adopted. So it's after it's adopted, this is what it's going to be. The citizens can take it to a referendum. So they can petition for a referendum, and then there can be a vote on the charter amendments. And there's time periods to happen. And you can see while that, you know, the nuances are important. It's legislation that's already been adopted that the citizens get to say up or down on, as opposed to the citizens helping create legislation because the legislators are not obligated to follow that. So that's the way the typical process is. There is a way where citizens can petition for charter referendums. They still have to get a referendum together. They still have to get their language together, and there still goes to a vote. But that's very unusual because they don't really have the nuts and bolts of the mechanisms of the charter of how it operates.
So one thing I want to clarify is council believes that they have the expertise to basically craft what the citizens want of their government. Just a minute ago, Councilmember Fuller wasn't aware that the mayor is a member of council, and I just had to correct her on that. I have a new council member to my left. I have a fairly new appointed council member to my left, and I have the two previous administration council members to my right. Again, if we're talking about expertise to craft what the people want out of their government, I don't see it here just yet. You'd have to give it time. And again, this is the people's document for vested power interest. Why wouldn't you want a committee to see what the people of Taneytown actually want to see done in their government? Because it takes time. We just heard that it's gonna take a while.
That's
I'm
right,
not sure how you
So
understand.
why are you
why
so
wouldn't we
afraid to
just
get
do
the
a committee?
process started?
Then let's do it. Let's do a committee through
We
it. Let's have
don't
the
need a
citizens
committee
involved in it.
because you're talking about citizens who don't understand it to begin with.
You just demonstrate to me that you don't understand it.
If you are part of the council, then why does it say mayor and council?
Jay, is the mayor a member of council by charter?
Under the terms of the charter, the mayor is a member of the council. That's why he leads the meeting. But he doesn't have the same powers as a council person in voting or in some other areas, just like you don't have some of the powers the mayor does. So what most people do, what most towns do, because it's a struggle to see you all disagree on this, is that it's never expected that the lay people who are sitting behind that counter should ever have to put pen to paper for any of the stuff that you do. I'm glad that you try to do that. I'm glad you try to write things. That's very helpful. But none of you have the expertise in government, and you weren't supposed to. You have the expertise in being community citizens and tied with the citizens. And your job is to guide the professionals. And then the professionals tell you, this is how you would do what you want to do. So in most places, the legislative body, if they come up with an idea and they want to review something saying, I just am concerned about this, that, or the other thing, they bring that concern out, and then the professionals will be the ones that draft it. You know, to the point with the current charter, we've always maintained a list, and it's not a joke list, but it's the list saying, when we get around to dealing with changing some stuff in the charter, we got to remember to do this. We got to remember to do that. And they're in our areas, they're very specific things that impact. An example, and the city manager can probably get the exact wording, but there are limits into the charter about what the city manager can approve. And that relates to something that's in the code, meaning for like contracts and limits. You know, that was set when the charter was put together, when $10,000 was a whole lot of money. Well, $10,000 in today's dollars is probably more equivalent to $50,000. Those things we know internally probably need to be changed, but we never make that a priority. And I guess that's what I would say as I'm watching this is, if the council said this is a priority and they start taking some initiative, then the professionals will help out.
I guess from my standpoint, my understanding is that we were going to engage in a review of the charter, and that we were not setting out to make wholesale changes or to change the form of government or change the structure. I'm not in favor of doing any of those things without having spent some time to actually review the document. In my understanding, what I understood that Councilwoman Fuller wanted to do was to review it and maybe come back with a list of things that we ought to look at discussing. But, you know, as far as three people sitting in a star chamber somewhere rewriting charter, I don't think that that's the intent. And you and I had this discussion. I don't believe that
It's not the intent.
See, that's
I mean,
that's the very point.
She says it during the
You know,
meeting, her intent is
we're
the
not
review of powers.
recreating the charter. It's not that we don't have a charter. We already got one. So maybe citizen input would be proper if we were starting from ground zero. But we've already had a charter that's been governing this city for 150 years
Well, I'm not opposed to
in one form or another.
some citizen
what
input
council
when we get to a
consists-
point, excuse me, when we get to a point where we have said, we've gone through the charter and said, these are some things we really think need to change, or we might want to look at changing. And then a committee that may involve some people beyond just a couple of members of council, and would include, you know, our legal advice also, would then put, you know, kind of create that framework and let our attorney put pen to paper. Like he said, that's not our job. It's not what we do. And I'm not recommending that we do that. I do not want to be any part of that. I'm not here to subvert the government that we have, but I am here to make sure that the government we have is working correctly. You know, and we have talked before about contradictions in charter and code. And because charter is the foundational document, you have to get the charter right before you can understand and correct what's in code. So that's, you know, you and I have had discussion. That's how I look at this, and that's how, that is my understanding, Councilwoman Fuller. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that what you want to do?
Yes, it was just an exploration of where we think there might be some issues so that we could take it to the point where we say, how do we fix this?
Can I get a consensus from council that this is not going to change the structure of government, powers of mayor or powers of council?
That is not the intent.
I don't
Is not-
think
Can I
that's
get a
a
consensus on
consensus.
that then?
I
That's fine, I'd like a
You
consensus
can't
on
ask
it.
for a consensus before we even begin our work.
that's just silly.
Not even really fair. You know, it's the intention is to line up our ordinances and our charter. And what we find when we do that is anybody's guess. So-
I'm just confused
so-
as to why we're aligning charter with
So
ordinance.
the intent is to look at the charter and see how we can make how we can make it a more effective governing document. I would say that would be my consensus.
I don't, we're not trying to look at charter and match it up to code. Charter should be looked at as a freestanding document first.
Yeah.
And then you should look at code to make sure that it aligns with charter. So we're not trying to go backwards with this. We're trying to make sure that the foundational document is solid.
But I just heard that the idea was to basically make charter match with code, but that isn't how you do it.
That, no, I have.
Oh, not
I
from
didn't hear
you.
anybody
I
here
just
say
heard that a
that,
second.
okay? No one here said that. Not in the last 10 minutes. No one here said that.
As far as making sure charter matches code. That isn't what I just heard.
That isn't what I heard anybody say. We're looking to review the document and come forward with things we think that we may want to look at changing. And I think that that's a healthy thing.
And we're not looking at changing the structure of government or the powers between mayor and
That's,
council.
that's way out of the bounds of what I think we're looking to do. I mean, you're talking about a complete realignment of the city charter, and no.
And that's what, again, it seemed from last Wednesday was a review of powers was where I wanted to start. And at the very beginning of the conversation, it was review and change. And then it goes into, she asked Jim, about the charter, and Councilperson Fuller does, and she specifically says powers is where I want to start. I mean, do you see how I take that 4 months after an election of, again, someone who has expressly shown their discontent towards me?
I can't answer that question, but,
It's a pretty easy one to see and answer, to be honest.
I'm going to offer a suggestion here. While I recognize that we don't necessarily want to make the charter match the code, we are aware of some discrepancies between the two. And I would just suggest that we be sure that we do look at those areas where there are discrepancies, because we may find that, much as the city attorney gave the example of increasing the authority to enter into contracts, was done incorrectly. The intent was to increase the amount or increase the threshold from $10,000 to $25,000. And we did it in an ordinance, but it should have been a charter amendment. And we didn't realize until after the fact, and then we never went back and made the two match. So there are going to be some instances where the intent is what's reflected in the code, but we didn't do it properly. So I would just recommend that those areas where we know there are discrepancies, that they be looked at with an open mind, that it may not always be the charter, depending upon when it happened. There may have been an intent to modify something and we just did it wrong over the years.
Well, and that's
So
why now's
I would
the
say
time
that
to make
that
those
should be part of
repairs.
any review.
That's what I meant when I said we've been talking about this for 5 years. It used to be on the list, your list, every month for years. I was supposed to be a part of that group to line those things up and fix those things. God, it was way before Henry died.
I think it was, I think it was before my time. but,
Yeah.
So just like building anything, you start from the bottom and the foundation, like you said, Chris. It's,
Well,
that's where you start, we'll go from there on.
As I say, it's a formidable task and one that's going to take a lot of time and effort. And the other side of it is, while it needs to be done, we've got so many huge pressing issues before us.
Yes, we do.
Should we start that until we get some of these under our belt? That's
Well,
the
except for
only
that, I feel like we don't have any of those issues because we are not being offered a lot of that work. I mean, we're making decisions, but we're not doing any of the legwork for any of those other
100% needs
things.
to be done. I agree with you completely. With the timing is the only thing I'm questioning.
And that's it. I feel like there's always going to be something. So if Mr.
Well,
Hellman and
I would
I
tend to
are
agree with
willing
you
to sit down
that
and start
there's
just
always
taking a
something.
look, then we'll, it's going to be a process.
That's why we've been talking about
And,
it so
right,
long.
so we'll stop talking about it and we'll just start doing.
There's
Whether
always
it
something.
may not be every month that
Well,
we
that's
come
probably
forward
true,
with
too.
something, but yeah, we'll just get
Jim,
started.
do you still have that list, or is there still a list extant somewhere
Right.
of those
I-
things?
I would
Things that we
concede
could,
to that thought.
you know, other than that, we start at page one and just start working through it, but if there were a list of things that we knew were an issue,
I'm aware of just a handful. I have an ancient memo in my hard copy of the code that were called to our attention years ago. I think some of those were adjusted, some weren't. I don't really remember if maybe the ones that weren't.
dog-eared
the
pages,
decision
highlighted
was
paragraphs.
what the decision was or what the intent was. But I can certainly work with the city attorney to try to develop a list of known issues.
I will say, again, Councilperson Tillman, when we talked, one of the things you did indicate to me that you knew Councilperson Fuller's intentions going into it and that you had signed up to go along with her as kind of a check on it. And again, I want to see if you have recollection of that conversation
Well,
that we had.
I fully recall that conversation, and that was, what we said was that if that is her intent, then yes, I would be there as a check on that. But I also told you in that conversation that I didn't think that that was the intent of what was said at Wednesday's meeting. That was not what I heard when I volunteered to, no, that's not what I heard her say. Now, if you believe that that is her intent, and if you don't think that I would be, someone to balance that, I'm not sure what to say to that.
I'd feel much more at ease if, for instance, Councilperson Foster and Councilperson Tillman took the initiative on the charter amendments. I feel both have a more balanced take on the council.
Councilwoman Foster is dealing with a lot of stuff right now that I think she probably doesn't have the time. And I find it ridiculously offensive that you would think I have the kind of power to go and create this charter that will get rid of any power you have. It doesn't make any sense at all. Everything has to come before the council and be voted upon, and there's a discussion. So
And in the case of charter amendments, the
That's the
people can
beauty
come
of
back
our
and
system.
petition it back.
that's how it's
That's,
supposed
you
to
know,
work.
Petition it back 20% of citizens, that's more than any of us are voted in with.
You have a point there.
Oh, I guess there's a reason for that.
We're fortunate to have a council of reasonable people. And any consideration will be discussed and will be voted on. Very little chance for error.
I'm going to start putting together a committee for the charter review changes. While you guys don't have to acknowledge what the citizen committee is recommending to y'all, I'm still gonna form the committee for it. I want to be at ease with this, that this is in the people's best interest going forward with these charter amendments.
How do you choose a committee for that?
The same way we choose for any of our committees, a nomination and a confirmation.
That's right, and who confirms them?
You guys do.
Right, so it's a waste of time. And it
To give the
just
citizens more
doesn't-
input on it,
No, giving a teeny tiny group of citizens that don't know exactly what it is that they're doing, you can do the funny little big eyeball face all
a
you
teeny
want.
group of citizens.
Yes,
I mean,
like the
again,
teeny group of citizens that comes out and votes.
No offense, it's what again, I asked you a simple clarification earlier, and it is specifically in charter, says the mayor is a member of council. There's no and of
Yeah,
buts
but
about it.
you
I
don't have any say in what's happening right now.
Even in the
Sorry,
legislative
like,
part
we
of
don't
the
need
charter,
your
it says mayor.
permission to do this.
And again, I don't need your permission for a committee.
And you can go ahead and try that.
That's fine, I'll start a committee to make recommendations to the council as well. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Jim, would you like to go into the police department stuff?
Okay. October meeting schedule.
No, no.
Day meeting next month falls on the Columbus Day holiday. Do we want to meet anyhow? Do we want to have a single meeting, combine our workshop and business meeting on the Wednesday before? Just want to get some direction so we know what to put on the calendar.
We do have the audit in October, so that'll be,
Right.
that's a consideration to make as well. Council single meeting?
I'm okay with a
January.
single meeting. What's everybody
That
else's?
meeting,
4th and 9th, supposed to be.
Everybody okay with a single meeting?
it's all right with me.
Yeah, I'm good with a single meeting. If you want to do the
So the
Be general.
Wednesday, the 4th.
4th,
Okay. We'll do the Wednesday meeting combined. Okay, thank you.
And then back to you, Jim, for the,
What's the date?
October 4th.
October 4th.
24th?
the
Fourth.
The 4th of October.
Yep.
Okay. Alrighty. So I guess back to the police policies. So a number of these, well, pretty much all of the ones on this list, use of force, pursuit, authorized weapons and firearms and weapon, roadblocks, internal affairs, less lethal munitions, that's the beanbag rounds for the shotguns, body worn cameras, patrol rifle policy, and conducted energy weapon or tasers are all things that are related to the police accountability stuff from, oh golly, I put it in my memo, I forgot
Senate Bill
the Senate
71.
bill number, right? That really we should have in place. So those are the specific ones that I would like to authorize Acting Chief Mitchell to implement by general orders. The body worn camera one, we also need to have that in place for our grant application that we just submitted to, for us to be able to accept an award if we are lucky enough to be awarded some money for that. So those are the ones that really are necessary, that need to happen as soon as possible. The other, little longer story, and that would be the leave policy. And we've talked about holiday leave for officers for the better part of a year now. When we went to 12-hour shifts a couple years ago, because we were at that point also very short on manpower, and scheduling was a nightmare to get 24/7 coverage, the 12-hour shifts, we started implementing out of necessity. And we learned in doing that there was a preference for it, and it really worked well for our schedule with our small department. So we approved a policy that went to 12-hour shifts, but at the same time, it took away floating holidays for the officers. And it sounds to me and others here that there was some miscommunication involved in how that was presented to the officers at the time. I don't know specifically what was or wasn't presented. That is kind of hearsay. So, we had a memo from the former chief that outlined things. We agreed to it. And after the fact, we were informed that that's not the way it was conveyed to the department. And it's kind of been a sticking point since then. Acting Chief Mitchell tried to bring it before you within the first couple months of his role as acting chief, and was advised that we don't want to make a change now. We're going to wait until the permanent chief comes in. And I don't think any of us expected it to go on this long at that point. So this lack of action or consideration is having a detrimental effect down at the department, we believe. And I think it's something we can implement without there being any budgetary impact. As a matter of fact, we may be able to save, if the holidays are reinstituted for the officers and they'll be getting the holiday, we could forego overtime pay. And just based on an average of what anyone from an officer up to a corporal who would be working the holidays, just looking at an average between the salary ranges for those three positions and multiplying it out for shift coverage, it's about $11,000 a year that we're paying in overtime because of the current holiday policy. So
So we would actually save money
we could save a little bit of money by, straight time on the holidays, but then granting them to actually be able to take a holiday. So if we can nail this down so there's no financial impact, no budgetary impact, I would like to, again, authorize Acting Chief Mitchell to implement a revised holiday leave policy. And once again, like the other policies, once everything is put together, indexed, organized, it's going to be, vetted probably through legit, and then come before you to be adopted properly with a resolution and do it, as a whole package once we're through the review of all the policies that do need to be updated. So that's what I got.
I guess we're looking for questions, comments, or concerns for Jim on that before we go looking for a consensus on anything.
On the leave policy, would this bring us into line with other local departments? Or what's the consensus there, or do you know?
The majority have some sort of leave policy. Let me see if I can find I think we heard back from everybody but Mount Airy around the county that other agencies do provide leave, holiday leave, that is. Let me see if I can find the email.
I don't know if there's if you've got a whole thing there, but I just wanted to see that if we're talking about no extra expenditure, the potential of actually saving a few dollars puts us in line with everybody else around the county. To me, this seems like a no-brainer.
You know, Councilman Tillman responded to an email, your email, Jim, and asked very important questions. And, is it, and I agree with 100% with what he said. Does it bring us in line with other departments? I'd like to know by roll call, which departments offer this and which departments don't. Is it fair to the officers and to the city? That's something we can answer when we find out that first question. It does not increase cost. And again, if those questions are answered satisfactorily, there's no reason for us to stand in the way of that. But it's another glaring example of the problems that are caused by not having a police chief. And it looks like we may have some candidates in line, but I've managed people for 35 years in my career. And it's just not good management to have the employees dictate policy. It's up to us to be strong enough to evaluate the request and make a decision based on facts. And I think the facts that Councilman Tillman outlined should be answered before we consider a vote on this. My opinion.
Anything further, Jim? Do you have anything to answer with any of that?
I don't think I have a list of which agency does what. So if that's necessary, we can put that together. Let's see. Okay. Right now, with the exception of Mount Airy, Taneytown is the only the only agency who does not pay for a holiday, for example, if an officer is off, they still get paid for the holiday or give holiday leave in some fashion to their officers. So we are the only one in that,
We are
in
the
that
outlier,
regard.
and so we need to,
Right, right. And again, we didn't get a response from Mount Airy, so I can't say everybody else.
so to answer your question, Jim, is
Right.
it is what
So
the
we are-
other
right, we are the
agencies are
outlier.
doing. It is not going to cost us, and I'm putting
It
words in your
potentially
mouth.
saves us money.
It potentially saves us money. It's not going to cost us any more money, and it will aid in officer retention. I see no reason not to move forward and allow Acting Chief Mitchell to go ahead and take this action. Any other comments?
Comments, questions, or concerns from council?
Go ahead, Diane.
Just a comment. History has proven that absolutely nothing aids in police retention.
Exactly. Oh, boy.
So, forget that.
That's not even part of it.
I just want, that's the only thing I have to say
Yeah,
about it.
just, you know,
Certainly are no guarantees.
What?
There certainly are no guarantees this is gonna be the
No,
magic bullet,
nothing
right?
aids in, retention.
yeah, that, you're right. CPAC, we're gonna get that, or what is it, what is the? CPOS, I forget, I can't remember, but anyway. And that thing we did years ago to retain police, that
Oh, yeah.
didn't do a thing. That was the answer to all the problems, and it never happened. But anyway, this, you know, Jim, you gave us a memo Sunday, or at least that's when I read it. It said, I don't want to spring anything on you before council meeting. Well, this is kind of getting sprung on us.
Yeah. Well, the,
And I don't think we've had enough time to digest this and understand the ramifications. And quite frankly, if this comes to a vote, I'm gonna have to vote against it for the lack of information, not because I disagree with it or think it's not a bad idea. I just don't know.
Right.
And that's where I'm coming from.
no,
What additional
understood.
information are you looking for?
I want it explained how exactly the policy will work and how broad is this in other police departments? And what is the fiscal impact on it? How much it's gonna cost us? Is it gonna save us money or is it not gonna save us money? You said it was, but how is it gonna save us money? I can't figure that out.
Not
right now, sir.
during the
Yeah.
meeting currently, only at the workshops.
And I understand that yes, even though I didn't wait until Monday, this is kind of springing it on you, admittedly. But again, as I had said in my email, Thursday, it was called to my attention, the current situation down at the department, as far as, you know, officers in the process of moving to other agencies. And that's why, I guess, the rush job in throwing it before you tonight. So I apologize that we didn't have something more solid or more thought out than we do. But again, this became known to us after the workshop.
Jay, you have your camera on. It looks like you're wanting to say something.
I just want to, I know we're talking and the council's been discussing the leave issue, but I don't want to lose the forest for the trees. The other, I don't know the number, 7 of them, 9 of them, that deal with changes that are really important. I would still urge that you consider those. You don't have copies of those either. I don't know that you need them. You certainly, we can provide them to you, but these are the standard ones that would be instituted to be modern day standards for those things, use of force, tasers, all that. So I don't want this discussion to end with the baby in the bathwater. So just wanted to point out to you.
Sounds good. Let's have two separate consensuses then, one for the policies and then
Yeah,
one
I
for
was
the-
gonna say we ought to do that.
So first, do we have any additional comments, questions, concerns?
This is a workshop topic at best. Probably should be a closed session topic. But that's my concern, yeah.
So the first consensus is what, 9 policies? Or I guess this would be given,
Why don't we just say mandated policies?
this is to give Acting Chief Mitchell the ability to, by general order, institute the mandated policies that have been described here today. I'm looking for a consensus on that. Are we good with allowing him to do
Yes.
that?
And Mayor, I'd go further. I would have an adoption by
Okay.
motion and vote.
Okay, would it just be adoption of the mandated policy or adoption to allow him? What kind of
Yeah.
adoption are you looking for?
I'd say that if you had a motion to adopt how many do we have? One.
Are we moving to adopt the
9.
policies, or are we moving to allow
9.
You said
You're-
9? Okay.
You're moving to allow Chief
Major Mitchell
Mitchell
to
to
make it?
adopt those 9 policies.
I'm looking for a motion to allow Major Mitchell to adopt the 9 policies that have been described here.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
No,
The ayes have it. So the next one is going to be the policy for the holiday leave hours. Am I going to do this one by consensus, or do you want to try to do an adoption as well?
This should,
May as well be consistent.
Consistent?
Yes, that way everybody can express their own vote on what they feel.
That's fun. I'm looking for a motion of adoption to allow Major Mitchell the ability to institute the holiday leave hours.
I move that we allow Acting Chief Mitchell to institute the holiday leave policy.
I'm looking for a second. I am not hearing a second. The motion fails. Well, after that, we have the council member reports. Councilperson Tillman, would you mind starting us off there?
Second, I'm gonna try to get myself back together here. I do want to start, Alan Jackson wrote a very poignant song, Where Were You that September day? And it's something we should never forget, not only where we were, but what we felt that day and how we came together in the light of a new day going forward. And we ought to keep that thought in mind, even as we argue amongst ourselves here of the much bigger picture. And, it is still a world we all must share. And we need to maybe learn how to share it a little better. But do take a minute, for those of you who are here, go home, hug your family. For those of you who are at home, hug your family. All right. Planning Commission. We had a very, very busy Planning Commission meeting. One of the first things we talked about, there is a Planning Commissioners Association conference coming up in October, and I believe all of the current members of the Planning Commission are going to be attending. That'll be down on Kent Island, October 23rd through 25th. The Memorial Park expansion preliminary site plan was presented for us to review, and there were some comments back on that. The Mountain Brook subdivision was presented as a concept plan and was approved as in the concept. This now allows them to go forward with preliminary design and allows a lot of other matters to be able to finally take some steps and move forward. There's a minor subdivision called Tawny View, which is over off of Baumgartner Avenue and Tony Heights. It's simply dividing a single property. There are still some questions about that, and there are questions regarding setbacks, and I believe that that's still in front of the planning and zoning officer. So the project, Recovery 180 over at the corner of Harney Road and West Baltimore Street was granted their site plan approval, is that correct? Am I-
I think it was contingent, but yeah.
You continue, yes, right, there was a contingent out of it. And so that's going forward. And that was, it was a busy planning commission meeting, and we look forward to, and there was a lot of citizen input and a lot of questions and a lot of things that were answered. So look forward to this coming month.
Sounds good. Councilperson Cheney isn't here, but I'll go over the Taneytown Police Department report. We have the in-service training, continuing education efforts for autism for law enforcement, promoting safe outcomes, 2 hours taken there, all officers. Cyber stalking, 1 hour taken by all officers. Firearm qualifications, all officers have transitioned from Glock 40 caliber Gen 4 to Glock 9mm Gen 5 duty pistols. All officers pass daylight and low light pistol qualifications. Specialized training, August 17, Corporal Schultz, Senior Patrol Officer Seth Cadelis, oh boy, Axon CEW Instructor Certification course was attended by them. Then we have the monthly statistical report. Total dispatcher generated calls for service 396, total citations issued 38, total warnings issued 72, total adult arrests 10, total juvenile arrests 4. On community outreach, we have the Taneytown Police Department participate in the National Night Out event that was held on August 1st. This event was a huge success and a very interactive experience with the community. On another regard to the police department matters, we have the chief applications closing here on the 15th, and I'm pretty confident we have a good batch of applications thus far, and I think we're going to see a police chief coming up here soon. Other than that, that is it for the Taneytown, for the police department report.
I met with Mish today and a couple times during the month, and it looks like we've got things back on track as far as the Main Street Committee goes. It's pretty exciting. We held a meeting for the first time in a long time last Wednesday in August, and although there wasn't a quorum, there were 3-4 people present, and they were able to build some enthusiasm about developing the Main Street Committee and its charge. Mish was very positive about the whole thing. He feels like a good start has begun, and he will continue to follow up. So I'm excited about that. Told me a couple pieces of good news. The gentleman from that had the proposed hardware store out on Antrim Boulevard has settled for both pieces of property. So that tells me he's still interested. So that's exciting. And Bellissimo's is well on the way to completion, and we're all excited about that. And trying to think what else we were talking about. Oh, at a previous meeting with the mayor and Mish, we decided to continue our involvement and keep Maryland beautiful and keep America beautiful and develop that a little bit more. And maybe in conjunction or with participation in Parks and Rec, adding their influence to it. So that was a good bit of news too. As challenges still present themselves on Main Street regarding retail businesses staying open at consistent hours and in routine hours. That's a big item that we have to address, and I think the Main Street Committee as a whole will be the best ones to address that. I mean, we as a municipality can't come in and direct people when to open their business and when to close their business. We only hope that they use good business sense and take advantage of the opportunity when people are in town. Nisha's planning a small business Saturday like we have for years in downtown, and it really sounds nice. He's got a lot of people coming from all over the area to add their expertise. We're going to have some food trucks. We're going to have some singing. We're going to have a lot of things. This is on November the 25th, and it sounds like a big deal. So I'm excited about the plans for that coming together and then seeing how that develops. It sounds like it could be the best one ever, and we've had some good ones in the past. I challenged him. I said, well, what are we going to do between now and then? And, well, we're not going to do anything. I said, oh, well, we've got a Fall Fest coming up, and we've got the Poodle Parade or whatever the dog thing is. And Tales of Taneytown. I don't know what it's called.
Yes, Tales of Taneytown, trunk or treat at the park.
I said, why don't we take advantage of that? I said, if I were a businessman and I was thinking about relocating my business or opening a business in Taneytown, I'd participate in the various festivals and events that they had just to see what kind of community involvement was there and what kind of community spirit the town had. Maybe the swaying factor for me to go here or somewhere else. So I suggested, I suggested, why don't we get an easel board of some kind and list all the properties that are for rent or for sale in town that would accommodate retail businesses and encourage people thinking of relocating your business, consider Taneytown. And, just have some bullet points about why it's such a good deal to be in Taneytown. The fact that we have low rents and friendly people and need a lot of stuff. So those are the things. So he thought that was a good idea. So I hope he follows through on that. But all in all, I had a very pleasant or positive visit with Mish this month. So I'm encouraged about what happens between here and at least November the 25th when our small business day occurs.
Councilmember Foster.
Habitat for Humanity is moving along. The footers, the foundation, and the exterior drainage have been completed and inspected. Tillman did the backfill work already. And after that, the basement slab will be poured and framing will begin. So it's moving right along. That's about all I have.
Councilmember Foster.
Okay.
Or my bad, Fuller.
So let's start with Bollinger Park. The trail is being poured next week, and the 2 boardwalks across the small streams will be constructed, after which the entrance and parking lot will be paved, and solar lighting for the parking lot will be installed. All of the signs, benches, bike rack, and other site amenities will then be installed. If the weather cooperates and all goes well, we're targeting a late October opening, which would be just in time for everyone to enjoy the fall foliage. Memorial Park expansion. We're still receiving review comment letters from the various Carroll County agencies on the preliminary site plans. Once all those have been received, adjustments will be made accordingly for submittal on the final site plans. We applied for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant through the National Park Service to put towards those construction costs. Good news, we are moving forward somewhat on this Memorial Park splash pad. We've received an initial design and pricing from Metro Recreation and Water Odyssey that was presented at our August 23rd Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting. We're working on some adjustments to that. We've applied for a Community Parks and Playgrounds grant through the Maryland Department of Natural Resources to help defray some of those construction costs. It's not going to be this summer, but we're hoping in the next couple of years. A couple of events happening this month at Memorial Park. Our fall flea market is going to be on Saturday, September 23rd from 9 to 2, and Harvest Fest is going to be on Saturday, September 30th from 11 to 3. We're going to have 20 vendors for the flea market and 40 for the Harvest Festival. There's also going to be live music at the Harvest Fest, which is going to be from the Twisted Blues Band. There's going to be a petting zoo, pony rides, face painting, games, bounce houses, a straw maze, hay rides, and the food and dessert trucks. Plenty of fun and free admission. Yoga in the park has concluded for the summer. Participants said they really enjoyed it, and this year's attendance was even better than the previous years. They had ages from elementary school age to over 70 participated, so all kinds of age range. The adult tennis clinics are starting on September 19th and running through October 10th. We've received lots of registrations for this community requested program, and so that is looking to be a lot of fun. The annual photography contest has started and will run through the end of October. There's lots of fantastic photo opportunities in the park, so get those pictures sent in for a chance to win gift cards and free pavilion rentals. Many of our local sports organizations have started their fall seasons, so be on the lookout for fundraisers and game announcements and help support our community's young athletes. I think that is enough. That is good. That is all.
Sounds good. With all that being said, I am looking for a motion of adjournment.
So moved.
Looking for a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are now adjourned.
Thank you.